You'd be in the back milling
We're
around.
live.
Yep,
We're
we're live.
We're live.
Yeah.
Hi.
Let's give a moment and wait for people to start getting on.
Join us, friends. Join us.
Mm-hmm.
Oi, 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 oi.
Do you want another chair? Be right here nearby. Wait.
Sure. Here, baby.
The other stool.
Sure. Have you been posting from Culture yet?
Mm-hmm. I posted. I posted this on culture, but you can do it on there too. Yeah.
I'll do a quick story here.
All right. What's up, people? People are starting to get on. Thanks for joining us right here for the Native Wellness Power Hour brought to you by the Native Wellness Institute. And we're going to wait a little while, wait for some people to jump on. I see someone right here that says Northern California native in the house. Good seeing you, Jean Tagaban. Thank you, Jean. Hello, Auntie Angie. Hello, Denise Harvey. Yes, Levine is here. Shailene is here. Awesome. Shalay Williams, what's up? And Robert Johnston showed up. Bjorch is here. I see him logging on. That's good. And we're gonna wait a little bit too till more people jump on. And I hope whatever people are doing right now in their homes, that everyone is in good spirits. Everyone is in a good mind. Everyone is focusing on the future and trying to visualize and manifest healthy, positive outcomes for not just yourself, your family, your community, but for all Native people and for the people, the rest of the world, and Mother Earth. And so it's a time for us to really look to our teachings, to look to all of our cultural practices that have allowed our ancestors to subsist for centuries leading up to now. I believe that this pandemic is also a teaching for us as Native people to, really as all human beings, to look at restoring our human way of life, to restore our human ways once again. And there's some teachings coming out of it. As tragic as it is for some people and families who are losing their relatives, there are teachings for the rest of us to live by. And so I wanted to say that in the beginning here. And I see more people jumping on. Welcome. We're going to wait here in just a moment. Chelsey is here as well with our daughter Aloe. Turn that sound off in the background.
Chef Thosh.
Yes. And so it's been a while since we have actually done like a Facebook Live kind of thing, and we did something like this a few years ago, and it was cool. And since then, we've been doing small webinars and trainings around Native country as well. And so, I also want to take this opportunity to extend my heart to everyone in Native country in the world who has been impacted by this virus, by the pandemic. We get word around Native country that some people have lost family members now, and we're starting to see those cases turn up in Native country. And this is something that, as we all know, our people have been dealing with infectious diseases and pandemics for a long time, and it has negatively impacted us. And it's a part of the trauma that we are experiencing today, is this loss of relatives, loss of lifestyle. how the culture has to change socially because of the infectious diseases. This is something that our ancestors have dealt with already, and it's in the oral tradition. It's in the documented record as well. And so this could be a time that's really, I guess, triggering and traumatizing for a lot of people. And so I wanted to extend my heart out to those people and all those relatives and the people in the world that are currently dealing with this illness and this sickness. And so I wanted to start off by saying that. Do you want to jump on now, sir?
Yeah, let me see if I can.
Huh?
Let me see if I
You can set her there. And so we're also we're here as a little family, and we're just managing with our little daughter too. Our daughter's 2 years old, Aloe, and so she's gonna be nearby. So we're gonna be in and out. We're gonna be in and out.
So, hi everyone, I'm Chelsey. It's good to see you all joining us for this today. And I'm kind of hanging on to my daughter right now. She's sitting on the counter. And so we love that. I mean, this is real. This is our home, our little apartment. This is where we cook every day. And so it's nice to be able to share that with you all a little bit of more into our personal life, I guess, that you don't always see on Well for Culture or on Native Wellness. And yeah, I mean, it's of course a little bit of a challenge juggling the baby with all of this, but that's life. That's what we're always doing. And I happen to have a 2-year-old who loves to be carried all the time. So we're constantly sort of balancing that in our kitchen. And that's kind of one of the reasons why actually Thosh is kind of in our home. He's the main chef for the most part because, well, for one thing, he likes to cook more than I like to cook. I'm not as passionate about it as he is. I do enjoy it, but it's not my favorite thing in the world. And
Start with introductions too.
yeah, we'll do that in a minute. And then for another thing, I'm always tending to the baby usually. So Thosh is really good about, making food for me because that is the way that we balance out the duties and responsibilities in our household. So I'm always grateful for that. So should we do introductions now that more people are on?
Yeah,
okay.
People are on, so go ahead and start.
Good. So, well, I did introduce myself. I said I'm Chelsey. And yeah, I'm the co-founder of Well for Culture, and I'm a trainer for the Native Wellness Institute. I'm originally from the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa, which is in North Dakota. That's where I grew up. And on my dad's side, I'm from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. And we live now in Phoenix, Arizona. So that's where we're coming to you all from.
Yeah. And again, my name is Thosh. I'm from the Salt River people, the Onalkamir O'atham on my father's side. That's where I was raised at. My mom's side, I'm Wajaji and Seneca and Cayuga. And so I was raised right here in Arizona and been working with the Native Wellness Institute. I've been attending Native Wellness functions since I was about 14. So for, a couple of decades now. And I'm just very, glad and happy to be part of that network of all of the trainers and the board members of the Native Wellness Institute. And so that's who I am. That's what I do. And as Chelsey said, that we have our initiative, Well for Culture, as well. And the Native Wellness Institute exists because, as we all know, our people are in the healing phase. We're healing from the historic trauma, the unresolved grief, and it's all the things that I just mentioned a little while ago. And so the Native Wellness Institute exists to bring our people healing, to facilitate, to help give technical assistance and training to our communities and people who are in need of helping to heal. And part of the mission of the Native Wellness Institute is to keep the traditions, keep the cultural practices of our ancestors alive.
Mm-hmm.
One moment. Let's turn this thing on.
Oh, is that the ice machine making money?
Making money! If ice machines made money, everybody would be like, get an ice machine, they make money. So, yeah, right?
Especially with this economy.
For real. And so again, it's that's why the Native Wellness Institute exists. And like Chelsey said, we enjoy working with the Native Wellness, and we enjoy traveling in Native country. And during this period, as we all know, that when people are in self-isolation, we're protecting our loved ones and protecting each other. we are happy to have to spend a lot of times indoors. And that's kind of the way we like to already live, is that we love to cook. As Chelsey said, we love to cook. We love food. We love ancestral food, indigenous food. We love all types of food when we travel the world. We like to try different kinds of food. And as we know, that food for a long time for our ancestors was at the center of our culture. And you may be familiar with the tribal food sovereignty movement that's happening for the past couple of decades. All of that is now proving and showing its functionality in modern times today. As they say, true sovereignty is the ability to be able to feed yourself and to be able to define your own parameters in terms of food. What is food for your people? What is accessibility to your region? What is within your budget? What are the cultural and spiritual practices that are associated with your food? And so we're big advocates of that, of strengthening our relationship to food as Native people, strengthening it from a spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional aspect of food. As we know, food affects all us in those different areas. It affects our mental clarity. It affects our ability to think, and it assists with all these biochemical processes in our body. It's biological information that our body needs, right? So physically, all of that. We also know that food affects our gut as well, and we know that the gut is connected to the central nervous system, enteric nervous system, central nervous system. Everything we eat goes into our gut and is affects our central nervous system, our ability to think, and all that. And so those are ways to think about food in terms of its effect on your spiritual, physical, mental, emotional well-being. And this is ancestral knowledge, but science is just catching up. Nutritional biochemistry is just catching up, and they're being able to look at these things, even though right now there still is not a lot of studies done on indigenous foods, and there's still a lot more area where we need to look at. So with all that being said, I just wanted to share some background on some food. Another thing in our welfare culture initiative that we found by really thinking about it is that there's 6 practices you can do to strengthen your connection to food, and one of them is always continuing to give thanks before all of a meal in the way that your people do. Maintaining gratitude ceremony around food is really important for us to do that. Another one is to continue to hunt for our food. That's one of the most ethical, one of the most economical friendly ways of eating meat, is to hunt our own and to fish and to do all that. And to forage, to get out and forage the land, berries, roots, all these types of things, wild cactus buds for the desert people, any types of the pine nuts for some people, acorn for people in California and those areas, the wild rice for the people in the Ojibwe, and all the strawberries for our Eastern Woodland relatives. Continue to forage is another component to strengthening our relationship to food. And another one is to continue to cultivate the land, to grow the food that our ancestors have been growing for centuries now. The corns, the bean, the squash, all the different variations of those. It's really important. And of course, to know the last one is to learn to navigate the grocery store. As much as we love to talk about indigenous food sovereignty and our connection to our ancestral foods, many of our people are not at this time able to engage in those for whatever reason. Maybe they're in a rural area, the knowledge isn't there, the land has changed, the animal migratory patterns have changed. And so many people are dependent on the grocery store, and that's totally fine. And so we want to kind of share a couple of food options and ideas of kind of, I guess, mixing all of those 6 things that I had said: navigating the grocery store, hunting, foraging, growing, all that kind of stuff. We want to kind of make a couple of meals to kind of show examples of how you can really hybridize the way you eat. I'm sorry. The 6th one of that, I only mentioned 5. The 6th one is to cook, is to learn to cook again. It's to get comfortable with cooking once again. And that's an important thing. Some of you probably cook a lot already, but as we know today, many people have a lifestyle of going through the drive-through of fast food restaurants, so they go out to eat a lot. But when you learn to cook for yourself, you're empowering yourself. You know exactly all the ingredients that is going into your food, because of you're the one putting it there. And we know that we are sanitary with our practices, And we can't guarantee or ensure that many times when we go out to eat at restaurants and things like that, or if we buy food from the produce section or the butcher, that we don't know for sure if they're really practicing, these practices to maintain sanitary conditions. So that's another reason why it's really important for us to be able to learn to cook and to get comfortable with cooking and to experiment and find out what that's right for you. You want to share?
Yeah, sure. So another concept that I like to think about a lot is having energy awareness when it comes to your food. So this ties right in with what Thosh was just saying. So the more aware you are of the energy that has gone into your food, the better able you will be to make the right food choices. So for example, think about the whole food chain from the beginning to the end. Think about, was anybody in the whole process of this food's production harmed? Was there a land exploited from the growth or the commercialization of this food product? If so, try not to support that product. So you're going to find that with processed packaged foods, stuff like that.
Imported foods from far
Or
away.
yeah, sometimes even imported fruits and things like that are exploitative to other indigenous communities around the world. So the energy there is not so great. So the next thing you want to think about is the hands that went into creating or making or growing or harvesting or cooking that food. Has good energy gone into these processes? Mm-hmm. The way that you can think about that is, again, if people have been exploited and people are in bad working conditions along the way, not so great. Restaurants often are a place where you don't really necessarily know the energy of the people who are preparing that food. I worked at a restaurant for years when I was in high school, and I can tell you that some of the cooks in that restaurant were not exactly putting the most positive or good spiritual energy into the food that was kind of going out. And it was a decent, kind of nice restaurant, but you got to really think about that. So the more that we are aware, like Thosh was saying, if we can just get back to simply cooking at home, it could still be that same, you can find a healthy version of a cheeseburger or a healthy version of pancakes or a healthy version of tacos. And if you make it in your home, not only are you more aware of the sanitization and the cleanliness that goes into that food, but also of the positive energy. So be energy aware with food choices, and that's going to be one of the best ways to use our indigenous thinking and to make really good food choices. So I'm not saying it's always bad to eat out and stuff like that. We definitely do from time to time. But these are just the things to at least try to keep in mind. Yeah.
Another thing that, too, I want to cover really briefly before we get into the food stuff is that we don't follow diets or count calories or things like that, or count macronutrients and things. I believe that there is a way to be successful with that, and there are people that are successful with that. Eating in that sense, but we found that what best works for us is if we're eating whole, nutrient dense, real food that we eat till we're pretty satiated, not till we're stuffed. But we try to practice mindful eating as we're doing that. We always try to have some kind of protein. We like to have wild meat from something that we hunted or someone else had gifted to us, or there's a grocery stores here in Phoenix that have good ethical sources. We always have some kind of meat. We always have some type of fibrous food, like some of our autumn beans or something like that from our region locally. And then sometimes we'll make some type of side salad, sometimes we'll use like Ojibwe wild rice, sweet potatoes and things like that to get a good amount of carbohydrates. But we kind of just follow the hand, like, meat about this much, carbohydrate too, also about that much, salad, maybe about this much. We just kind of follow those old school practices and just try to eat till we feel well, and making sure we're making good nutrient dense, we're making choices of good nutrient dense foods that are gonna keep us satiated and not cause our blood sugar to skyrocket and then drop, foods that's gonna allow you to be able to maintain. So we don't advocate for any type of diets. Diets in a sense is like a kind of a one size fits all approach, and a diet may work for some people because of maybe their physiologically those are the foods that their body needs. Maybe their region really supports a ketogenic diet. Maybe someone's health condition is affected in a better way from a vegetarian diet. Maybe some people, because of their culture, are more leaning towards eating 80-90% carnivore. So we should look to our ancestors. How did we eat? How did we eat? Also, what's accessible in our region? What's affordable in our region? Try to eat locally. And so we always make our food choices based off of those things right there. And as I mentioned, with some of the foods that we grow in our garden, as well as we like to support indigenous farmers locally, like Ramona Farms is owned by a member of the Gila River Indian community in central Arizona, and they make all the variations of Atambov, the different types of beans, and these ones are the Chukbov, the black beans, Swambov too, as well as the brown beans. And we make variations of not just soups, but we make salads out of those beans as well. Or the Oraspirkin is the round wheat berries that are grown, that we adopted from the Spaniards in like the 1500s. And then because of we're intertribal in our household, we always incorporate things like manomen, Ojibwe wild rice, in the way we eat as well. And so every household has that ability to determine what is your personal food culture. What do you have access to? What's in your region? What are the teachings associated? So we want to encourage everybody in Native country to kind of think in those terms and think in terms of ancestral food, a way of life. Food is a way of life. It's more than just nutrient density, which diets typically just look at the nutrient density. But if we're thinking about food in terms of indigenous people, an ancestral way of life, you have that component of connection to land. You have that spiritual component. You got that component of maintaining our gratitude ceremonies and passing down oral tradition in all the practices of planting the seed, harvesting from the land, hunting, fishing, all of the ceremonial giving of thanks practices associated with those. It's all part of indigenous food and way of life. And oftentimes diet from the dominant society mainstream view leaves those things out. So we tend to try to encourage people to think about food as a way of life.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that?
No, that's really good.
Should we start with the salad here?
Yeah, let's start cooking.
Cooking.
Yeah. So we're going to share 3 different sort of things with you today. The first will be a salad that Thosh is going to prepare. And the reason we chose to show a salad is because many people have kind of the wrong idea of what a salad is or should be. I know that growing up in North Dakota, when I heard the word salad, I immediately thought of iceberg lettuce and ranch dressing. And I mean, so often to this day, we travel around and when we see salads being served, that's kind of what it is. And A, that's not very nutritious. B, it's not filling. C, it doesn't taste very good. And D, it's not very good for us. The only really nutritional value of iceberg lettuce is hydration. And other than that, we don't necessarily need to be eating that, or, there's just not that much to it. So there are much more flavorful and delicious and fun ways to make a salad. And then in terms of the ranch dressing, I'm not going to lie, I'm from the Midwest. I like ranch, but I usually eat it with my pizza. I know that's kind of embarrassing. But we are going to show you how to make a real whole food salad dressing because it's super easy. It tastes really, really good. And it just complements the flavors of the vegetables and the other ingredients in the salad really, really well. And Thosh is great at it. And so knowing how to quickly throw together this side salad or to have it as your main dish is really, really going to be helpful for you. The second thing that we're going to make is going to be a protein bowl. Right, Thosh? That's what we're doing?
Yeah.
So the other fun thing about the protein bowl is it's filling, again, and it's really... it can be adjusted based on the ingredients that you have access to. We'll show you a certain version with the ingredients that we have on hand, and we're going to remind you that you don't have to have the exact same ingredients that we have. You can sort of replace out the root vegetable, the meat source, the vegetable sources, etc., etc., with what you have access to and what your family loves to eat. So we'll show you the protein bowl, and that's going to be really good. And then I'm going to show you also how to make an iced tea, a homemade iced tea, because again, tea is one of those things that has always been a part of our culture. It is delicious, whether in the summer or the winter. It's really fun to make an iced version at home, and it's really easy. And the thing is, when you buy iced teas at the store, 9 times out of 10, they're going to have a really high amount of sugar in them, like 50 grams or so. And honestly, we should be eating 50 grams of sugar in a full week, not in one serving of iced tea. And so we're going to show you how to do a really delicious, very, very lightly sweetened iced tea that I promise you is just as good as anything that you could buy at the store. In my mind, it's a lot better. So let's get started. Thosh, you're going to start with the salad?
Oh, I think you said meat.
Are you? Well, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go with the salad right here, and what we're gonna do is we always have like our favorite is like spinach, arugula, and some kale or something like that. And so what we always do is we'll get that, and we like to incorporate like some sort of just diced up vegetable in there. And so I have an orange bell pepper. An orange bell pepper right here that we diced up, and then right here we have just some pumpkin seeds right here that are unsalted and raw, and to make our own type of dressing. Oh, also we're gonna throw in these tart red cherries,
which Aloe has been feeding me, so I've already eaten half of them.
Yeah, she's been feeding us these. So we have these tart red cherries. We're also going to incorporate. We're going to throw that in there as well. And so we always just kind of do variations of things. What we're going to do is we're going to show how we like to make.
Oh, she wants the cherries.
Oh, we're going to show how we like to also make our own dressings as well, because as we know, a lot of times the dressings in the store, they're filled with a lot of hidden sugars and preservatives and things like that. So what we're going to do to make our own dressing is that we're just going to use some apple cider vinegar right here from Bragg's. This stuff's really cheap. You can find this at a lot of places. And then we're just going to use some extra virgin olive oil. We're going to use some of that. We're going to dice up a lemon, and we're going to spritz that lemon in inside of the salad as well. And we're going to use a little bit of garlic sea salt on that salad right there. Oh, you want that too?
Oh, look at that puppy.
And so that's what we're going to do. And again, this is just something really simple. And if we are only going to eat a salad, then we always throw some kind of protein in there. We dice up anything from elk to bison to venison, and we always incorporate in there. Sometimes salmon, a wild catch salmon, we'll cook that and then break it up in there. And so, but right now we're going to have like a venison protein bowl. So we don't need to throw anything like that in this. So we're going to just do that here. And I like to dice them.
Out of the way for you?
No.
Are you good? Okay.
I like to dice these up nice and small as well. That way you're not eating a whole bell pepper in like 3 bites. And we're just gonna throw these in here as well. These pumpkin seeds, and we always just throw in about whatever we think works for us as well. Mm-hmm. We're gonna get some of these tart red cherries right here, and we're just gonna throw that on top right there.
And if you don't have dried cherries, you can use dried cranberries, dried blueberries, any kind of dried berry will work for that. And if you don't have access to any dried fruit, you can simply leave that part out. So
yeah.
You can still make the salad. Or you could even put fresh berries in there. That's really good too.
Yeah, again, this is all really just a template, to show. The main thing is finding a way to make it nice and flavorful so you don't feel like you're eating rabbit food. So we're going to get this in here. We like to eat rabbits, not eat like a rabbit.
I was going to say, because rabbits are food.
Yeah, they are food.
Oh, so cute.
I'm just going to spritz these in. Just a little. And then with the apple cider vinegar, I don't really use measuring cups and things like that. Mm-hmm. You could, but I just kind of know from our own palate that we just put about
a splash
of that in there. And then can you do the olive oil quick? I just need to grab
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Somebody says, oh, NWI says, hi, Aloe. Eller says, my brother and sister, hi, Eller. Okay, sorry. And then somebody says, I love that you keep your daughter off camera. Much respect. Well, we thank you for supporting that.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, that's why we do it, just to protect her little spirit.
Yeah, we'll address more about that too after. So we're going to throw in that olive oil as well.
Oh, you want milk? Okay.
Also, too, for those of you that eat cheese, we don't eat a whole lot of cheese, but we like to have like a Parmesan, like some ground Parmesan thrown in there. Or we'll get, we do actually, yeah, we'll get some of that. We got some ground Parmesan that we like to throw in our salads.
The shredded one is really good.
Yeah, use the shredded one right now. We use the shredded one as well, too. So we might just go ahead and throw a little bit of that in there. And again, we don't really follow recipes. We just go and get all of our favorite foods. We get all of our favorite foods that we like, and we make variations of them. We just throw together different things, you know. Like this morning, we knew that we were going to make this venison protein bowl, so we put some deer meat out to thaw, you know, earlier this morning. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to sprinkle the... we put about just that much in there. Yeah. We like to have just... It makes it a little bit more flavorful.
And this is a... Wait, here. Let me readjust.
You can talk and I'll pretend like I'm talking for you.
Okay. Whoa! Cord. Whoops. Sorry, guys. We're improvising. And the little amount of cheese that we add, I just want to make a note that we know many people are lactose intolerant, him included. And it's all about moderation. When you use just that small amount of this really high quality, good Parmesan cheese, it's not gonna it doesn't hurt your stomach, right?
No.
It's fine.
It's not like drinking milk or eating ice cream or protein whey. That stuff kills me.
And that's kind of another example of why we're not super, super adamant, like in a really harsh way in terms of like absolutely dairy free or absolutely gluten free. Like, yeah, for the most part we're dairy free, for the most part we're gluten free, but sometimes a little bit of moderation, there's a little bit of exception to these rules. So just kind of know your limits and know how food impacts you, and you can sort of listen to your body and go from there when you're making these little choices.
And so the other thing we're going to throw in here too is just some garlic. Oh, this is the onion. Actually, no. I want that garlic. Hold on one second.
Oh, Aloe had it.
This version?
Here it is.
Oh, yeah. So this brand is pretty good too. We like this one. They make a lot of variety of different flavors of their salt. So this one is garlic, some garlic sea salt. We're gonna sprinkle just a little bit of that in there, and then we're just moving it around in here. And all of these ingredients are fairly cheap and they're fairly accessible all across the country. So that's kind of why we just chose some stuff like that. That's why we chose these, because again, eating well is about what's accessible, what's accessible to you. So we always just throw together some variation like this. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll have the white tepary beans. We'll have those already cooked, or the chickpeas that also were grown by Ramona Farms. We'll have those already cooked and in the fridge ready to go. So we'll even throw those in this salad. And we'll make a version like that as well, and that gives it a little bit more heartiness, and it adds much more fiber to our foods, and giving us being more satiated. And fiber is good too for people that need to watch their blood sugar, because it slows down the absorption of their blood sugar as well. So it's good to have that. So that's what that is. This is a really simple type of salad, and we do all kinds of variations. We just see what we have available, and we just start throwing things together. We don't plan or follow recipes. We just throw together what we have available. So anything else on that before we move on?
Oh, that's good. Do you want to do the protein bowl next?
Yeah, I'll do that, and then you can do the thing.
Cool. I'm going to go feed over here.
Yeah. And so...
Protein bowl.
Yeah. And so So what we also want to share is like a way to make like a protein ball, and in this case, we're using some venison that we hunted, and also a purple sweet potato. You can use any other kind of potato, like a yam or a sweet potato. You can use anything like that as well. And what I did is we diced up the sweet potatoes in very small squares like this, very small squares. Um, and we coated our pan with olive oil, and we cooked them lightly on top of the stove for um, for probably on like high medium for about like 8 to 10 minutes, and then I put them in the oven on 355 for 15 minutes just to kind of make them soft. I don't like them all crispy, I like them soft. And so also too, what I did is I already prepared and cooked some of this deer meat here from a recent hunt. And here's some onions. These are Iatoy onions from our family garden. They're also the same, pretty much same species and variety as the wild onions that kind of grow around summertime around different parts of native country. So I diced up those and I started to sear the venison by itself in olive oil in the cast iron pan, and then I diced up these and threw those in here in the last, like, I guess 3 or 4 minutes. So we're gonna just gonna go ahead and mix these all up right here, and then we're gonna throw in some other things. Oh yeah, you can also, instead of the sweet potato, you can also do this with manomen, also too. Ojibwe wild rice is a good way to kind of make that as well. Or you can dice up a squash. This is one of the squash from our family garden, the Autumn desert squash, and you can also dice this up in small squares and utilize something like this as well. Like if you're someone from a tribe that has the squash and things like that. And so we're gonna go ahead and add these sweet potatoes into this bowl. Where's my... Those are in there nicely. Then I'm gonna add the wild onions and the deer meat.
And if you were just making this in real time, like how long do you think that would take?
She said if you're making this in real time, how often or how long you think it'll take, and this, to make that salad, it takes less than 10 minutes to cook the sweet potatoes and the venison together, 20 minutes, and then throwing them together after is also doesn't take very long as well. And so once so I have these all mixed in here. These wild onions mixed in here with the deer meat, the sweet potato, and then I might add like some more salt again on top. And I added it as I'm cooking, but I might add a little bit more of that, the onion salt or the garlic salt. I might splash a little bit more olive oil in there as well to kind of give it a little bit, bring back some moisture to it, because it was kind of sitting, waiting on purposes for this video. Another thing that could be done as well is you could even throw in something like these tart red cherries. You can throw in the tart red cherries as well inside of this venison protein bowl as well, to kind of give it almost that just a slight tart and sweetness to it. And if you wanted to, if you are not going to have a salad with this, you could even throw some greens in there. You can throw greens in there as well and kind of make it like this, make it a salad type thing. So again, we're kind of just eating, we make sure we have some kind of protein. We make sure we like to have some type of good complex carbohydrate. Try to keeping it along the lines of sweet potatoes, different types of beans, indigenous corn, and manomen, wild rice. And so trying to keep it a little bit more healthier like that. And so that's typically, how we eat in our home, and we always use the different variations of this. So, so again, we encourage people to not feel like you need to follow the recipes all the time. You can find variations to mix and match of all of your favorite foods that you like. Anything you want to add?
Sure. Let's just How much meat do you think you used today?
I used probably about 3/4, or no, about a half a pound.
Yeah.
I used about a half a pound of the venison
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Yeah, so just a little note about portion size too is it really varies for us. Like you can't think about food like a one size fits all solution because sometimes people will ask us, well, should I use a pound? Should I use half a pound? Well, first you got to think about how many people are eating with you. You have to think about, have you been active that day or do you plan on being active that day? If so, maybe you need a little bit more than usual. Or what kind of activity you're doing. Like if Thosh and I are doing some really heavy weight training, we'll easily split like a pound and a half of meat between the two of us for, one of our meals in the day, along with, of course, other like fibers and carbohydrate type sources and stuff. So don't think of this portion size as exactly what you need to be eating or exactly what you need to feed your family. You have to just sort of learn how to recognize the differences and the individuality in yourself. And there's a term called bio-individuality that everybody should be familiar with. And what that means is we eat according to whether or not we have any illnesses that our diet depends upon. We eat according to our ancestry and what has been in our bloodline for a really long time. We eat according to what's local because that impacts our bio-individuality as well. So there's all these different things that you have to take into consideration when sort of choosing which meats, which portion size, which vegetables, all that kind of stuff. And these are just some examples of what worked for us. The other thing I wanted to really emphasize is she okay?
Mm-hmm.
You're goofy. Alo's being goofy. Okay. The other thing that we really want to emphasize is, yes, we're eating this deer meat right now for this protein bowl that Thosh hunted for us. But not like Thosh mentioned, not everybody has access to wild game. And our recommendation for choosing a meat source is just to choose the highest quality that's available and that's affordable to you. So if you have a package of ground beef in your refrigerator at the time, you can use that for your protein bowl.
Make it little meatballs, put them together.
Yep, exactly. If you have a little bit of a flank steak or even some kind of poultry or whatever kind of meat you really like, and just try to choose a meat source that hasn't been pumped up with all the chemicals and stuff like that, if at all possible. And that's kind of our recommendation for choosing a meat. Mm-hmm. The power.
Here,
I'll get it. I got it. It's right here. And then, so like Thosh said too, you can switch out the potato. If you don't have purple potatoes, you can use any kind of potato. It's really up to you. It's better to eat a carbohydrate source like this than to go for example, white bread or something that's really going to spike our blood sugar, and this is really going to be satisfying like that. So
yeah, and so another thing to think about too is since we're spending a lot of time in our homes right now, we want to think about too even cleaning out our kitchen, cleaning out. Are we only having a lot of unhealthy foods in our kitchen? Because if we have chips available, we have pop available, it's hard to really be disciplined to where you are going to know you're going to have that inner discipline to not continue to go back and to eat this whole bag of chips or the whole bag of candy. So one of the things that we always recommend to people too is that if you're trying to strengthen your relationship and make your relationships healthier with food, that we have to treat our home as a sacred space and keep that real, whole, natural foods from Mother Earth available and accessible in our home. So that way we're inviting in that spirit too of whole natural food from our ancestors, our land, all that kind of stuff. Because also, like I said, if you got high, we have in our drawers, if we have drawers, lots of processed foods, it's really hard for us to, as human beings, to really avoid those. We're going to keep going back to it. We're going to keep eating it. And then we're eating all day long. We're keeping our blood sugar and our insulin high all day long. And as we know that a lot of people have to watch their insulin. They can't have their insulin high all the time. If they're borderline diabetic or type 2 diabetic, or if someone's trying to lose weight, we don't want to be eating all day long. And so think back to our ancestors. A lot of oral tradition says that our ancestors ate once, twice, sometimes no times at all. And we ate seasonally. We ate less during the winter because we are trying to ration food. But we're in the age of plenty now. There's food everywhere. There's processed food everywhere. It's in abundance. And unfortunately, many of our people in our communities only have access to those foods. And so those are systemic issues for sure. But like Chelsey said, if you don't have these ingredients, make do with what's available to you in your region. And always to try to choose the whole foods. Some people don't have the means or accessibility or financial means to buy everything grass-fed, to buy everything organic, to everything non-GMO. And I know this is kind of a controversial thing, but you can look into this yourself. But it's much better that you're eating whole food, period, than choosing processed food, in a bag or a box. So I mean I wouldn't worry about that, and there's not a lot of robust, conclusive science showing the difference between grass-fed meat and corn-fed. And I used to really kind of buy into that until recently, when I'm kind of learning about some of these things. So it's okay if you don't have access to that, or if you can't afford that. I think we need to make do with what we got, and a lot of these problems are related to their systemic issues as well.
And this ties right back into what we were saying earlier about making energy-based food choices and food processes in your home. So, for example, simply the fact that you're choosing to cook at home is already a healthier choice than going out to fast food to get that, it could be the same quality of ground beef that maybe you would have ordered at fast food. But if you're cooking it at home, you have so much more control over the energy that goes into that food. And you also have control over the condiments. You're much more likely to make better choices when you just simply choose to cook at home. So we really encourage that. And that's going to just really improve your holistic food wellness of the home and of the family when you're choosing to cook together and cook at home. And it's a more social activity for the family. It keeps families, in a time like this, it's a blessing, to be able to spend time with our families and to cook at home and to really sort of use the time that we're given now in quarantine, in this situation, to use it productively and wisely and really recommit to these practices as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, and so another thing to kind of touch upon too, when we are well nourished, they say that's how our immune system strengthens. Our immune system is amazing, and that's what the professionals say. They say it's amazing at doing its job. Many people are thinking that they need to boost their immune system, but apparently it doesn't work that way. That your immune system is strengthened when you're well nourished, when you're managing stress and you're getting good sleep. That's when our immune system is really working. So many of the professionals are saying the best thing you can do is to continue to get movement in, to continue to get good, healthy sleep, to be well nourished, and to manage your stress. And that goes in line with our 7 circles of wellness model that we created, which is a relationship to real healthy whole foods, having good sleep, movement, physical movement, some modality of physical movement, having peacefulness in your life, some sort of methodology or a modality that creates peacefulness in your life, having a connection to the land, our Mother Earth. Also, treating your home as a sacred space. Our home has a big part to do with our personal wellness and community, maintaining your relationship to family, your clan system, or kinship, community. Those 7 areas that play a role in how well we are. And according to the professionals, these are some of the best ways that we can maintain our wellness and keep our immune system nice and strong, is to establish those relationships with those foods. And
just to clarify, Thosh is not saying that boosting our immunity or keeping our immune system strong is going to prevent the coronavirus. Absolutely not. We fully are in line with social distancing and quarantining and following the measures that the CDC and all of the other legitimate sources have recommended. So we have to follow those. However, it doesn't hurt in any case to have your immune system functioning at optimal levels. And there have been studies that have shown that those who are kind of healthier on a whole without pre-existing conditions are surviving the coronavirus at higher rates. And so just generally speaking, and then of course we're looking at the social and the personal well-being aspect of that as well. In these situations where we are at home, just really hunkering down with our families, it is for us, it's pretty much the same lifestyle as we've always had, but for a lot of people it is really different to not have your kids in school and to not be going into the office, and you're feeling a little cramped and you're feeling a little closed in, and like it's also just a scary situation for everyone. Like, what's going on? You know, when is this going to end? Is my family going to be okay? All that kind of stuff. And people are getting stressed, and people are getting nervous, and so it's just more important than ever for self-care and to take care of yourself, and keeping your immune system high and eating really healthy, nourishing foods are going to impact not just your physical wellness, but your emotional wellness, your spiritual wellness, and all of that. And we only have a few minutes left, so we should go for the tea, right?
Oh yeah, that's right, the tea. I forgot about that.
Oh wait, but before I do that, will you explain why we use cast iron?
Yeah. Well, we just use, cast iron. We know that a lot of the other pans have the chemicals in them, such as Teflon, things like that. They scrape off and get into our food. And there's some theories or sources that say that it causes heavy metals in our blood and things like that. So we always just stick to using a cast iron. We like to use that, and wood is as much as we can, and very few rubbery type things. This is only one, only because it's flexible. So that's what we found that we like to utilize as well.
Yeah, when we do use a plastic utensil, we try not to have it in contact with like a really hot, like a boiling water or whatever, because then the plastics are released into the food. Mm-hmm. So that's why, and then the other thing is it's economical. If you have cast iron pans and you take really good care of them, they last forever. I know people who have had cast iron pans passed down through the generations. So it's good to invest in a couple of these. And we also have a pot
and a skillet where we warm up tortillas on and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. Should we do the tea?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh wait, we should also do a taste test. Let's get it.
I tasted some.
Oh, okay. People like to see the taste.
Yeah.
He's using the serving dish. Okay. I guess this is the realness, and I'm over here eating with my hands. But seriously, when you get the potato and the meat and the cranberry or the dried cherry all together, it's like this sweetness mixed with the savoriness of the meat and just like the fattiness of the oils, and it's very, very satisfying and delicious. And that's one thing our ancestors have always done, especially in the plains where I'm from, is those combinations of dried berries and protein sources like meat, mixing those together, like wasna, or I don't know from other tribes what your words are for that, but this is our way of ancestral eating daily at home. You can do it at home. Yes, it's a little bit different from, what our ancestors were doing, but it's still a way of incorporating that delicious nourishment daily.
Yeah. Okay, what do you want to do?
You want to do the tea?
You want to do the tea? Yeah. And then
Okay.
I have some other comments, but I'll wait. Let's do the tea first.
Okay.
You can get that done.
Can you just watch out while I get that stuff?
And then while she's getting the tea, we see a couple of comments there. Someone made a good comment. They said, yes, the root vegetables, if you stock up on those, they last a little bit longer. And again, all the different types of indigenous beans are great to have on hand as well. And we got some dried foods too that we have that we foraged from the desert. And so it's good to go ahead and stock up on those and try to, if there are indigenous people, if there are indigenous farmers in your area like that cultivate the land right there, you might try that.
That's what you want, baby. Here, I'll just let her hold this. Here, baby. You want that?
Oh, that's what she wanted.
Yeah.
And so you might support that if you can find those indigenous food producers in your region. And so, again, yes, the dried foods are good. Someone asked, what about poultry? I don't see you guys use poultry that much. Well, we eat chicken here and there, but not a whole lot.
Oops, sorry. That was loud.
Chicken doesn't have as much nutrient or good sources of protein and fat like grass-fed bison or even grass-fed beef, venison, moose meat, all that kind of stuff. All the wild games are jam-packed with protein, and all of the nutrients inside of the meat is bioavailable. Some of you are probably not going to like this, but a lot of the dark leafy greens that's constantly recommended, that a lot of the nutrients in there, we don't absorb all of those nutrients because they're sometimes, oftentimes, like the iron in the plants is different than the iron that we get out of wild game meats and just meat in general. And so we like to try to eat foods that are going to give us the most bang for the buck, that are all available, which means the rate in which our gut absorbs up those nutrients. And so that's why I don't rely on to get a lot of my energy source from some of the greens, and we like to get it from these other foods there. So you want to
I'm just trying to get a spoon to mix.
Yes, so
Can you pour that ice pitcher?
Yeah. The whole thing, is this enough?
Yeah, that should be good. Okay, so the iced tea. This is going to be real easy to show. Can you hold Aloe, love?
Yeah.
Okay. Aloe's sitting on the edge of the canvas. That's why one of us always has to be kind of holding her. Okay. So I pre-mixed or pre-brewed. This is a really concentrated hibiscus tea. I used about 6 or 7 tea bags in just this small amount, mason jar full of water. So this is pre-brewed and had been sitting in the fridge for about an hour. And then we poured about that much ice, as you can see, into our jar. And I'm just going to do this over the sink because hibiscus stains really easily, so I don't want to spill on myself. So I just pour that hibiscus tea over the ice. And then I've got it about halfway. My little pitcher is about halfway full. And then I'm going to add, I love sparkling water. So if I can open this, where's a little towel or something? It's kind of slippery because it was like, there we go. So I love sparkling water. I love sparkling tea. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of that and let it fizz a bit. And then, and you don't have to do sparkling water. If you don't have access to that, you can simply just use regular water and ice. And then I'm gonna add, this is our little lemon thingy, and
Gifted by your mama.
Gifted by my mama. And we're just gonna squeeze a half of a lemon into there. Actually, I think I'm gonna do a whole lemon because I actually really like things that are really, really tart. So I'm gonna squeeze the rest of that lemon juice into there. And so for me, if it's not sweet, I want it to be tart and a little bit sour. Then, okay, aloe. Oh wait, I'm gonna use the coconut water.
Oh.
Can I borrow this, baby? Oh. Huh. Are you gonna bring her over? No. Okay. So Aloe had borrowed. She's holding the can of coconut water. I was gonna put a little bit of coconut water in, because that adds just a really good hydration and natural sweetness. I'll just show it to you, and I'll give her the can back. She's in a mood right now. Of course, if you don't have coconut water, you don't have to add that, but that's what I like to add for making the tea just naturally sweet and really, really hydrating. So that's really it. I'm leaving it halfway, or about that much empty, so that whenever Aloe is done playing with the can, I can put the coconut water in there. But that's it. It's super, super easy to make your own homemade iced sparkling tea. And it's really, really, really delicious. So that's our beverage option that we're showing you. We'll put it back in the fridge. Do we have anything else that we want to talk about?
I just want to tie up with a few things.
Okay, let me see here. Yeah. Come here, baby. It's coconut.
So again, there's a lot of different variations that can be done of all this stuff. We eat all kinds of stuff, and we just wanted to try to share something that is that where people will be able to access from across native country. And as I said, in our household, we come from corns being squash people, plains people, people who eat, who hunted wild meat, and so we do a mix of that. Wild rice people, we do a mix of that. So as I was saying earlier, for those of you that are just joining us, you can find out what's your food personal culture. Make that, find out the nutrients that your body needs. Find out the foods what's accessible to your region, what's in season, what can you afford when you go to the grocery store, what can you forage, what can you hunt, what can you fish, what can you trade, and what can you get from, how can we shop smart from the grocery stores and support local produce and support, rather than supporting foods with a large eco footprint that come from very far away, such as avocados use a lot of water, ginger comes from far. A lot of these foods that are kind of promoted as these superfoods, which is funny because none of the foods that are promoted as superfoods, such as moringa and things like that, they didn't exist on the land here in what is now known as North America. Indigenous people had our superfoods. We still have them today. And so it's important for us to look at what those are. So you have the power as an individual to create your own personal food culture, because indigenous food is going to vary between families, even in one community. So again, you have that right to determine what is indigenous food for you, and I wanted to encourage you to think in those terms. And to this time that we are experiencing is the time more than ever to practice indigenous food sovereignty. And that has been happening and being pushed in the past, in the recent decades, and now it's showing its functionality. It's showing when we're getting a little bit of a glimpse of food supply being in shortage. Some of you probably went to the grocery store, saw there's no eggs, there's no meat. We're getting a glimpse of what it's like to live in times of shortage. What was a luxury for a couple of generations ago is now like a necessity for us today. And so we're kind of being humbled as human beings. We're reminded. This also makes me think about too why our ancestors had such reverent giving thanks ceremonies and gratitude ceremonies for the food that they harvested from the land, or that they hunted or they fished, because those foods there, it takes work to do that, right? It takes work to establish those connections. When you have your hands in the process of going out to get this food and process it yourself and prepare it, you're less likely to waste. You're less likely to waste because you know the hard work that it took to go out there and pick all of these berries. You know the hard work that it took to go out and fish all these salmon and get them, smoked in the smokehouse, or to go out and hunt an elk or a moose, or to get out and to plant hundreds and hundreds of corn, bean, and squash seeds in the sun. When we're developing that relationship with the food, and that is core to a lot of our indigenous culture. And so we need to restore that. I always say we need to put food. We need to put food back at the. We need to put food back at the center of our culture again. And right now it's on the back burner. When people talk about cultural preservation, they don't oftentimes refer to our food. To me, I feel when we're eating ancestral food, when I'm eating the autumn corn with some wild meat, it does something for me. I'm experiencing directly what our ancestors experienced and their connection with their food, and that's a powerful experience for healing, for indigenous identity. And so those are some things that we wanted to end with. We wanted to thank you for tuning in and spending this past hour with us, and want to thank the Native Wellness Institute, all of the board members, for doing the work that they do throughout Native country. I want to extend my heart out and to ask everyone to put your hearts and minds together to send that positivity and energy, send that healing light to a lot of our people that are working in the medical responders, the people that are working in the crowded hospitals, that are caretaking for the elderly, to send our good thoughts, round up our energy from our heart, our mind, and to send it in the direction of those relatives. Also sending it into the direction of the relatives that have lost family members due to this pandemic, that are currently struggling, or people whose anxiety is being triggered from being in isolation and not seeing their friends and their family. people that may be are in places where the sun isn't out yet, and maybe they're feeling depressed, or they're feeling sad or alone, or are scared because it's uncertain of what the future holds. We don't know how long this is going to last. So put your hearts and minds together, and tie it up and send it into all the directions to touch all of those relatives out there. And I want to thank you all too for doing the work that you're doing in your own personal healing and wellness journey. Those of you that are here and everywhere in the world that are practicing wellness. When we're all practicing wellness together, we're strengthening that spirit. We're strengthening that spirit so that way it can access and reach more of our relatives out there who need it. Our relatives that are suffering from addiction, depression, those that are suffering in domestic violence situations. When we practice wellness, it's going to go and try to touch those people. So this is one of the best things that we can do, is to practice our own wellness, and to now more than ever it's the time to live by our ancestors' teaching. Not just talk about it, live it. Live it outside of ceremony too. Don't just act cheapy and good in ceremony. Get out on the, when you walk into the city, treat everybody with that kindness and respect. Treat all living things with respect and honor. And someone just posted, our 7 circles of wellness. That's right. You can see in the comment section, someone posted that. You can see that's a little model. We made that a few years ago, and now it's really coming in handy during this type of thing. So I think that, yep, someone said fasting. Yep, that's what we do too. We pretty much eat 2 large meals a day, and we try to cut off our eating after a certain period in the evening time. But we try to space out our meals and I personally try to allow between 5 and 6 hours at least between each meal. That way I can allow my blood sugar to kind of regulate and be at a good consistent pace. That way it keeps my gut will clean up shop if we're allowing it to be open and to fast. And those are all good things to do right there. And again, that's how our ancestors operated for thousands of years. We didn't have the luxury of just going to the fridge whenever we wanted. We didn't have the luxury of going down to the grocery store and getting what we wanted. We had to ration food. And so again, we're living in this age of planning, and we're seeing that the impact it's having on our health. I just want to address a couple in here. Yes, jerky, good. Will reminded me of jerky. So those of you that are harvesting meat, having the jerky is really important too, because obviously it's going to last right here. Let's see. That's a good things here. Yeah, someone asked, what's the 7 circles of wellness? If you scroll down into there, you'll see that. I kind of explained it a while ago. So again, do you want to say any last comments? I'll just grab it. So again, thank you all for tuning in. Tomorrow at noon Pacific Standard Time, tune in to Native Wellness Institute board member Robert Johnston, who will be doing a talk on the power of positive thinking. And this is a great one. And Robert has been my coach since I was playing basketball with him back when I was like 12, 13. I'm 38 now, so known him my entire life. And so Robert has a lot of knowledge and great coach, has coached teams to win the Nabi basketball tournament 2 times in a row, I believe, maybe even 3. So anyways, yeah, he's going to be on tomorrow at noon. So tune in once again and share this with all of your relatives.
Yes, and don't forget to watch the ones that have already been on the Native Wellness Power Hour, and you can see the list of those. It's on nativewellness.com, and it's still on this Facebook page. I20SP did one, Stephen Newbreast did one, and Jean Tagaman did one.
Yeah.
So.
And thanks again to the NOYSE Foundation, who has generally supported the Native Wellness Institute in this effort.
Mm-hmm. All right, yeah, so I just wanted to also say thank you all for joining in, and there's so much conversation that surrounds this topic of food, and we of course barely just got to scratch the surface here in this conversation, but it is an important one. And so we just encourage you to continue your food journey without judgment of yourself. We always say there's no room for judgment in wellness. So Thosh and I did not grow up necessarily eating this way every day. We're both, in our 30s and spent a lot of the last 10 or 15 years, both of us, learning a lot about how to sort of improve our eating habits and stuff like that. And we're still learning all the time, every day. And we're so cute. And we are discovering new information all the time and making little adjustments and tweaks to our eating habits. And so it's a lifelong learning lesson. And so, please don't be down on yourself if you have suffered from any sort of food addictions. Those are very real issues. Or if you're just, having a hard time learning how to eat in a way that nourishes your body well. It is a hard thing to learn, and it's a very difficult to change habits, but it can be done. And we really just encourage you and are so glad that you're here and you have spent this time with us. So thank you so much. I'm wishing you all the love and all the nourishment in your home and in your food.
Luger.